are live. What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Erik, and this is Erik Bets Fights. It's Thursday night, y'all, and you know what that means. It is time for big money bets. That means we're creeping up on the end of the week. The fights are like 48 hours away. We got all those smart bets in, so to speak, and now's the part of the week where we dig through all the dumb bets and see if we can find the smart bets amongst the dumb bets kind of thing. But today, so I think today is the 7th episode of Big Money Bets. This show is still kind of new. And it's a very special episode, and that's for two reasons. Reason number one is it is my birthday today. I was going to wear a birthday hat. I totally forgot to do that, but it is my birthday today, and I'm joining a very special and very exclusive club. Some of the members of this club are the one and only Francisco Trinaldo. Another member of this club would be Andrei Arlovsky, and that is the 43 club. I am 43 today, folks. So, there's part of the year where I don't get to be the same age as Francisco Trinaldo and Andrei Arlovsky, and then I get to catch up with them again, and that's an exciting day. So that's today. Another reason why today is an exciting episode is I'm really excited about the guests we have today. I've been really excited about all the guests that we've had. But the guest I've got today is someone whose show I've been listening to for a long time and have been a fan of for a long time. We're going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. But first, we're going to talk about a little bit of a recap. If you've watched this show before, you know that we don't do like a real recap here. But, obviously, it's basically like we gloss over the losses and we concentrate on the wins kind of thing. We don't want to do that with the track record, but this is a whole different thing here. So last week, if you've seen the show before, you know we give out some parlays and then we give out some big money props. I didn't hit any of my props last week. Lately, I've been doing like my smallest big money prop is like a plus 500. I might have to start dropping a little bit lower than that because I've been hitting like nothing on the props lately. I've been swinging for the fences a little too much on the props. However, I did finally hit the 6-legger last week. The 6-leg parlay I did hit. That's the first time that has happened. I did have one previous week where I hit 5 of the 6. But the 6-leg parlay from last week was Andre Fialho, OSP, Michael Chandler, Brandon Royval, Randy Brown, and Blagoy Ivanov for plus 952. So I'm feeling good about that. Moving forward, hopefully we can hit that parlay again. Maybe we can hit some of the props. I did start with a little bit of a lower money prop tonight. We'll be getting to that in just a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and bring our guest on, folks. Like I said, somebody I've been listening to for a while. I've been a fan of for a while. If you've ever listened to the Punchlist MMA podcast, he is one half of the dynamic duo that brings us that show. Literally one of the best and one of the most established and popular MMA betting podcasts out there. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. We're going to go ahead and bring him in right now, Mr. Dale Lipan. How's it going, Dale?
Well done, man. Crush the last name. I appreciate that. That goes a long way with me, buddy.
Hell yeah.
So I appreciate that. Not many people get that one right. Even though I say it every episode or nearly every episode, people still butcher it. So I appreciate you nailing that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've heard you say it, but yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much for being here, man. Like I said, I've been a fan of the show for a long time. Before we jump into the bets here, why don't you take a second to just kind of tell everybody a little bit about who you are, maybe like how the Punchlist podcast got started, how you got into MMA betting, just kind of whatever you want to tell us as far as some context for like kind of who you are and all of this and how you got started.
Awesome. So give me the ear tug when I talk too much because
no sweat.
I'll get going. So 10,000 foot view. I used to have another sports betting podcast that I did with my brother called Fistful of Cash. And we primarily focused on just trying to be sharps on everything. I handled combat sports and a little bit of football. He did football, basketball, the whole nine. Anyway, he went to nursing school, started a family, the whole nine. We didn't have time for it anymore. He went his own way. I was doing Fistful by myself. Trey was a listener to Fistful of Cash, and at the time had his own show called Proper Punches, which was like a TMZ style MMA show. And we were in communication for that. Trey and I don't know each other outside of the internet realm. I was doing Fistful by myself. Him and I had spoken several dozen times, just him being a fan of that show. And he was like, hey, man, I'm struggling to do this show by myself. You're doing a show by yourself. We seem to get along. You want to come on my show? You want to try something? We rebranded Punchlist MMA. 2 years later, downloads in a couple dozen countries, a couple sponsorships, some badass guests, some merchandise, and all kinds of other humble brag stuff, man. I freaking love talking about fights. It's my thing. Like I one of the things that I love about you is that you're passionate about the sport, and you know what you're talking about, and you're not new to it. Like I love new fans, but I also love fans that like were there in the dark days or care enough to go back and revisit the dark days and just are there. So, when like I think I said the other day when there was a tweet that you were involved in, like my litmus test, I asked people, what do you think of Evan Tanner? And if they go, who? And I'm like, we can't talk about MMA. We can a little bit, but if you don't know who Evan Tanner is, we're not going to do anything right now. So
if you can't tell me all the details of how Evan Tanner died and about that thing he was starting up in the mountains where he was trying to train fighters and start a camp, and if you can't tell me about all that, then what are we doing here, right?
If you can't tell me about the fact that the guy went out there with less than 2 liters of water and planned to stay out there for 5 days, he went out with essentially 2 granola bars and a half of a big gulp. Yeah, bro, we can't talk about that.
And that's one of the coolest things about becoming a part of this whole kind of community, especially on Twitter and stuff, this MMA gambling community, because yeah, like you said, I've been a fan for a long time and it was always kind of a solo thing for me. I didn't even really have fans that were into MMA or friends that were fans of MMA that much. It was always kind of something I was just into on my own. And I never felt like being, almost like a lifelong MMA fan was anything like kind of special. And now that I'm in this, it's like, I'm like old guard, there are people that are like, whoa, you've been like, I went to UFC 26 live back in 2000, and that people are like, what? They can't even imagine that. And I'm like, I never felt like this was like, a badge of honor. And now it kind of is. So that's sort of cool that I found a community where like, that's where that kind of stuff that I did just because I was dorky and loved this stuff is like something to be respected.
Dude, how about dubbing VHS copies of the early UFC events after like we would rent them from Blockbuster, bring them home, and then my stepdad would help us dub copies of the tapes, like VHS tapes, so we had them. And then like this was like back like when it would cost like $8 a day to not take a Blockbuster movie back at times, and we would keep them bad boys for like weeks and rewatch UFC 1, 2, 3, 5, all like if it was out, boom, we were there, man. And some people just don't understand what that was like,
Absolutely.
I had to wait till new ones came out, like new Pride events. Like I had to wait till they were released on DVD, like because like the internet wasn't as prevalent. So like I was overseas at the time, but like I'm going to the stores where they're selling DVDs and I'm getting DVDs of old Pride events like 3-4 months after they happened. So I could finally see what was going on because there was only like a couple deep dark forums online where you could get results, like the early days of Sherdog. That's really kind of it, man. There wasn't a lot out there. So it was like early Sherdog and when it came out on DVD, and that's it, bro. That's it. So
we need to come up, and this is something we should really do. You and I should do like a special episode sometime. We can come up with like some kind of format, but mostly just blabbing. But we should do some kind of special episode where we just talk about like some of that stuff from back then, like what it was like to be a fan back then and stuff. Because I think we could have a really cool like 4 or 5 hour long. Oops, did we just do that episode?
Oh man, for sure. I know that there's some podcasts, and I wish I could give them credit, but I've seen various pieces of content pop up throughout the years where people will go back and revisit old events or revisit old fights and sort of like either rescore them or not re-commentate, but they'll put like a new fresh set of eyes on it and revisit it over and over again. I would love to like just sit down and go over like, dude, let's go watch BJ versus Jens Pulver. Like, let's go watch that, please. Like, let's revisit some stuff. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm going to go ahead and plug this now because he's a buddy of mine, Chris Negron. I've gone on his show a couple times. It's called the MMA Archive. That's what he's doing. And he's not a new MMA fan. I mean, I think he's been an MMA fan for like 10 years or something like that, but he hasn't watched all those old events. So he knows the sport really well now, but those old events are new to him. So he's going through as a guy who knows the sport and how it is now and is watching those with a fresh set of eyes. And then he does an episode on each one where he just kind of talks about what went down and stuff. And actually the way I met him was I heard that show, and I'm a huge fan of the early events. I used to watch them over and over again on VHS, like you were talking about. It's like they're like favorite movies to me. Like if you sit down and watch old UFC events with me, I can like speak along with the commentary like people do with movies because I've watched it so many times. And so I sent him a message and I was like, dude, I love this show you're doing. And he was like, why don't you come on? And I was like, well, shit, why don't I? So yeah, you should get a hold of him and do an episode. It's a lot of fun.
I'll have to reach out for sure.
Cool. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and jump into this thing then. Did you get a chance to sit down and get all your bets figured out and everything?
Yes and no. So first of all, I think I'm supposed to show you that I'm drinking something or that I have a glass. Is that a thing that I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, it turned into a thing where everybody uses a glass with a stem.
Oh, I don't have a stem.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm not fancy like that. I'm a pint glass guy. So all right, but
still kept it alive. Yeah, I've been working on this. This is just kind of the way I do things, for better or for worse. But I had my parlays and stuff put together, and I end up moving shit around and changing my mind like right up until the show starts. I've been moving stuff, so we'll see what I came up with here. But we'll go ahead and start with the 2-leg parlay. Do you want to kick it off, Dale, or do you want to have me kick it off?
Yeah. Do you want me to give you both of my legs, the first 2 legs right off the rip, or do you want to go like how do you normally do it? You snake draft, or what do you?
No, not snake. Yeah, you can just do your 2-leg.
Okay.
Typically, just kind of give me the first leg. Give me a little bit of reasoning behind it or whatever, and then just go ahead and give me the second one, and then what the payout would be for it.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So right off the rip, my first leg is the OG himself, Michael Johnson. Most people are going to look at that line and go, I don't understand why you would cement that as a like an anchor in a parlay, but the reason why I'm going to do that is complete strength of schedule for Michael Johnson. I've been a long Michael Johnson stan in the fact that I don't know how many other people you're going to find on the roster that have a tougher strength of schedule than Michael Johnson. I mean, he is just an absolute he's a gamer in the sense that he won't say no, and there's no fight that's too tough for him. He will say yes. And 4-fight loss streak aside, he was beating Josh Emmett, and I love Josh Emmett. Josh has been on our show. I really do like Josh. He was beating Josh until Josh knocked him out. So Michael Johnson can hang with anybody. So this is a good opportunity here against a guy like Alan Patrick, where you're getting good strength of schedule, good camp, a guy that's had some time off to let some injuries heal. Now he's coming back, and Patrick hasn't really shown me anything that I've really like fell in love with that made me think that he's really much of a dominant threat to anybody. So a guy like Michael Johnson, who's been there with everybody, seen everybody, and trained with everyone, I don't see what Patrick's going to bring that Michael Johnson won't be equipped to handle. And I just don't really think that we live in a world, even though 2022 is pretty weird, I don't think we live in a world where Michael Johnson drops 5 in a row. And I think he goes in there and he gets a win. So this is a good anchor piece with a low price point on it. So I'm going to put Michael Johnson in there in my number 1 spot. And then my second will be Aleksandar Rakić. I love Jan Blachowicz. You listen to my show. I love Jan Blachowicz, but the kickboxing background of Rakić is going to be an issue. The back is, supposedly healed with Blachowicz, so apparently he's feeling better now. I don't know. Big upper body, skinny little legs. If I look at the way Rakić approached Santos, if I look at the way he approached Devin Clark, if I look at the way that he approaches, he's very tactical, low output, but heavy strikes. He's going to beat up those thin legs of Jan, force Jan into a clinch battle, and I don't necessarily know that Jan can hold him against the cage and take him down and control him the way he did, say, Izzy. It's just they're two different beasts. Rakić, I believe, is just part of the new guard, and there's no universe where Rakić makes 185. Blachowicz was 185, went to 205, obviously became that champ, but he could easily go either way. I just don't see it. How old's Jan too? He's like 37, 38 years old now. It's a passing of the guard. Rakić minus 195 on most books that you're getting him at. 2-leg parlay. If I'm looking at it, you're getting, if I'm putting that in there, that you're looking at, what's that turn out to be, like plus 160 to start right off the rip. So we'll go there.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. I always try to get like to even money or close. And yeah, I love those picks. And I think your reasoning behind Michael Johnson makes perfect sense. I think we're getting a buy low spot on him. I think people are putting too much weight on the 4-fight losing streak. And I really don't think that really comes into play here too much for all the reasons that you just said. I mean, Michael Johnson is clearly the better fighter of the two. And Alan Patrick is a guy who's just going to come out and throw everything he's got into everything that he's doing without any concern for whether what he's doing even makes sense in the moment. And I think Michael Johnson is more than equipped to handle any of that. Love it. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm looking at for my 2-legger. My first leg, I put on the Hulk himself, Iwan Kutalaba. He got him at -210. The only thing I see working against the Hulk here is that he's going to be undersized, but he's the Hulk. I just don't think it matters. Ryan Spann is a big, strong, physical dude, but I don't want to talk shit on him, but he's just not. I think he's a guy who's able to rely on that size and that physicality without any, and he hasn't necessarily developed his skills to the point that they should be at. And I think Kutalaba he's just a scary, dangerous dude. And I think, if we look at his last 2 fights, he's landed like 7 takedowns and 8 takedowns in his last couple fights. Like, I like to think like, okay, he's proven that he will go that route if he feels like that's the best way to go. And, I think he's going to come out here. I mean, he can come out here and do, I'm going to land 8 takedowns in this fight. He can go that route if he wants to. He may look to strike. He's not going to want to strike at distance probably here, but he might look to cage push. He might look to, I think it's going to be a Hulk smash kind of situation here. And then I did for my second leg. People sometimes find this a little shaky because sometimes I put a little more trust in women's MMA than I should. But I went with Caitlin Chukagian at -185 for my second leg. I've trusted in Caitlin a lot. I've put money on her a lot, and she usually comes through for me. And I feel like I can see the arguments against her in this fight to some degree, but it's almost like you were saying about Michael Johnson. She's just a fighter that I've come to trust, that I've come to, I believe that she's going to be able to figure out how to deal with most things that come at her in the cage. She's only lost to the very best of the very best for the most part. If you aren't the elite of the division, she's going to figure out a way to get past you for the most part. And so I do pretty well trust her here. Those two together then come out to +127. So I did get a little bit over even.
I love it. I believe, and part of me gets hesitant whenever I feel like the MMA betting community starts to recognize patterns and get on things. And it seems like over the course of time, I've noticed more and more people realize that Caitlin Chukagian is an ATM, and Chukagian by decision for the large part has been essentially free money. So I get hesitant whenever people start figuring everything out, because it's almost like the announcer's curse, right? Where the announcer goes, oh, this guy's made 38 field goals in a row, right as he's going up to kick number 39, and he shanks it. And you're like, oh, man, But I'm glad you said Caitlin, because she's about to make an appearance in mine as well.
Excellent. Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah. So I've got Caitlin at number 3 for the exact reasons that we said. As far as Amanda goes, I have a hard time differentiating, and I want to encourage people to take the same approach to things. Try to unplug the idea of what a fighter is capable of doing versus what they're most likely to do. And we can say that Hebus has amazing jiu-jitsu, and we can say that she's getting better, and we can say that she's reinvigorated and focused on her deficiencies as a fighter. But what's important is let her prove that first before you start throwing a bunch of money on her. We know that Caitlin Chukagian is going to come in. She's going to give you 15 to 25 solid minutes if you let her. She's not going to slow down. She's going to hit you with that outside jab, the 1-2 circle. She makes good fundamental decisions. She doesn't circle to the wrong side. She doesn't really get caught. The only time that she got caught, like you said, was to the elite of the division. And Hebus is not the elite of the division yet. She may be one day, but as of right now, she's not there. So I can't, I love betting women's underdogs. It's kind of like our thing, and maybe I'll eat crow here, but Chukagian has been such a consistent cash cow. And I'm calling a woman a cow with all respect. But she's been such a consistent cash cow for us. I can't possibly go against her. It would seem criminal. It really would. So she's my third leg. And then my fourth leg is Iwan Cutelaba. My concern with Cutelaba is this. Fight IQ is there as long as he keeps the Hulk more Bruce Banner-y, right? So like when he's Hulk from like Infinity War and he can kind of like keep it together, like be the Hulk, but also keep logic and reason there. Like you said, 7 and 8 takedowns while also inflicting damage. I like that Hulk. I don't like the Hulk that's so pissed at Magomed Ankalaev that he goes out there and he just swings for the fences and acts like an idiot, right? I don't like that version of him. And Ryan Spann, who I am on the fence about whether or not I even believe he's a UFC level talent, he does hit hard. And like you said, he will be the bigger guy. And it's one of those things where like I can see a Ngannou, Cain Velasquez situation where a short uppercut in the clinch or perhaps an elbow or something like that, where Iwan's doing most of the work, bringing the contact together, he gets caught. So I need him to be smart, pick his entries, don't get into a firefight, control yourself, and then you've got things under control. I'm hoping that he does that. He just signed a new deal. I'm hoping that he's going to put things together in what is a wide open light heavyweight division. It's really there for the taking, a stand-up win. And if we put both of those in there, we're at plus 489 right now.
Damn, I'm liking that payout. Yeah, I like where you started. I like that you started with some lower numbers. That's always what I'm kind of trying to do here is like, I don't want to put like a minus 400 and a minus 350 in the two-legger. Like, what's the fun of that? I don't get any payout on that. I might use them a little bit later on, but yeah, I'm trying to build it up a little bit at the start.
Yeah,
I like that. Cool. All right, so for my four-legger to review, I had Cutelaba and Chookagian for the two-legger. I did get into some numbers that I don't super love here. I got Davy Grant in my four-legger. He's at minus 330, which I don't like that number. So this is one of those spots, and I know it doesn't make sense. I hate that I do this, but I do. If there's a number that I do not think there's value on and I wouldn't play it straight, I'll still just throw it in a parlay, which like really, if the value's not there, I shouldn't be using it no matter what, but I still do it with a parlay.
Yeah.
And even though that number I do think is off, I do think that Davy Grant, he should win here. Obviously, he's been subbed, I think, 3 times in the UFC, so there are some concerns there. But last time out, Louis Smolka got knocked out in the first round. Davy Grant's got heavy hands. He's a good striker. He's definitely capable of finishing people. I could see Davy Grant even finding a round 1 KO here. If it goes to the ground, could it get dicey? Maybe, but I feel like Grant is going to be. I feel like Louis Smolka just doesn't have a lot of physicality. He's certainly got some skill, but I think that Davy Grant is going to be just kind of the more physical and stronger guy here, probably, if that should end up coming into play. And then the next one, and I don't super love the number here either. I put Jake Hadley in at minus 220. I'm going to talk more about, I'm going to break down that fight more later in the show, so I'm not, and I bet you are too. So I'm not going to get too much into that right now because I heard your show this week, so I think I know where you're at on this one. But yeah, so I end up with plus 331 on the four-legger.
I love it. Smolka probably one half of the most obscure main events in MMA history. Remember when he fought Patty? Was it Patty Holohan?
And that was a main event?
I believe that was a main event because it had like 3 fights. It had like 3 fights fall out like the week of. And then it ended up, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, gosh, now I feel like in my brain, I remember it this way. If I'm not mistaken, it was Patty Holohan versus Louis Smolka, and it was an overseas card. I believe that turned into the main event. If it wasn't, it was at least the co-main. And I remember thinking this is the weirdest main event.
It is a main event. Yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah, it is in Dublin. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, and it was in Dublin. That's right. Yeah. Yep. So Patty Holohan, Louis Smolka, weirdest main event ever. There was like 3 fights that fell off week of. Very interesting. Can I address something I see in the chat?
Absolutely.
Grateful Dude says, I think the punchless curse is real and Camacho gets finished in round 1. Do you want to talk about the curse real quick? Can we talk about it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So are you aware of our curse?
I remember you talking about it before, but I can't remember what it is exactly.
Okay. So this weird thing happened where we noticed a pattern. And it started with Frank. People that agree to come on our show and then no show us, like not cancel, say, hey, I got to reschedule, but like literally say, I will be there, and then don't show up, do not win after they do that. The only exception that we have had in this, we went 6-1 last year. The only exception was when Emily Whitmire fought Hannah Goldie, and it's because they fought each other and they were both cursed. So we actually thought maybe there would be a draw. But yes, Frank is on that list and has not won since. He has lost 2 straight since no showing us.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, shit, there it is.
So
take it to the bank.
So, well, here's the crazy part, right? Is that Dober is a friend of our show, as you know. Dober and Frank are like boys. And I told Drew, I was like, Frank no-showed us. And he's like, that's not like Frank at all. And I was like, well, you have the opportunity. You can release him from the curse. It's not something we put on people. It's just something out there in the universe is doing this. And he's like, fine, I release him. He's released from the curse. The next day, Frank got in that car accident and wasn't able to fight.
Oh, damn, so, that's weird as hell.
Right? Super weird, right? So it's like even Dober can't release him. So we're at a weird spot here because Camacho's fighting a Dana White Contender Series guy, and the hot thing to do right now is fade Contender Series guys. So we have cursed Frank Camacho versus Contender Series. If a Contender Series guy goes out there and sleeps Frank Camacho, I think the Punchlist curse is the most, I don't know, strong. It's the strongest unseen force in the MMA universe. In my bold take, I'm just going to say
at that point, it'll have to be. Absolutely.
So, but we've got a list. There's a list of cursed people out there.
What do we got here? Long hair Smolka might be a thing, though. Be careful. Long hair Smolka. I'm not familiar.
He must have grown his hair out.
He must have grown his hair out. That must be the new mythical fighter.
Oh my gosh, long hair Smolka. Well, he calls himself isn't he the last samurai?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And he's always had short hair. So if you're calling yourself a samurai and you don't have hair like Erik Prohaska, you're not a samurai, bro.
Right. You better get that high ponytail going on. Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to that 6-legger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. And then 6-legger. Oh, gosh. I don't want to live in a world where Davy Grant is a minus 300, minus 330 over anybody. So I'm having a hard time putting him in. So I'm really, at this point, what I would love nothing more is to build a parlay that's anchored, like I said, in later fights. So as it goes on and we get these correct, your cash out opportunities, if you work with a book where the cash out opportunity is available, is much, the payout is much higher on it. And I'm going to go women's MMA here.
Let's do it.
I'm going to get super spicy. I'm going Angela Hill over Verna. And Angela Hill's a plus 160. I'm going to tell you why. Angela Hill is a gamer, and now she's full camp Angie. It's not short notice Angie. She's got a full camp. So married, in the new house, full camp, everything's done. She can focus on fighting. Now, that might be a gift. It might be a curse. We have yet to see, but we have to bet on what we think a fighter is most likely to do. And what Angela Hill is most likely to do is put herself in a position to win a split decision. And if I can get essentially what boils down to a 50-50 chance on a plus 160, I'm going to take that 50-50 chance on Angela Hill. She's going to put herself in position to win a fight. She's not really going to put herself in a position to be finished. People can say, oh, Verna's a world champ BJJ practitioner. She doesn't show it in her fights. She wants to bang. She wants to stand there and fight. And Angela Hill has been around. She's a veteran of the game. Her record is uber salty, but she's trained with the best of the best for probably 15 plus years now. Good camp, good camp training, good camp as far as time goes. And she's fought everybody in the world and has been competitive. I like her against Verna, plus 160 all day, man. Women's science. Let's go. I'm putting her in.
Nice.
Putting her in. All right. And then last but not least, on that 6-leg, I'm good. Man, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because everybody's on Petrosky, which makes me super nervous. I'm going to go more plus money here, and I'm going Alan Nascimento. I'm just going to get as dicey as I can, right? I just want to be dicey. We're just Gordon Ramsay, chop it up. Nascimento, I believe 18 pro wins, 14 have come via finish. I love the opportunity here against Jake Hadley. Jake Hadley, 8-0, 6 finishes as a pro. This fight really has a inside the distance, under 1.5 written all over it. But I really think that Nascimento's got more opportunities to win this fight than Hadley does. Hadley does have subs, does have KOs. Nascimento obviously has more subs than KOs, but he does have both on the record. I think this fight has fireworks written all over it. When it gets to the ground, even though both men have submissions on the record, I believe that Nascimento is going to have the advantage. I'm going to take him here at plus money. It may come back to bite me in the ass, but if we can get through the first 5 fights, we're going to have 3 of our 6 legs done, and then from there we're smooth sailing, weighing whether or not we want to cash out. So I'm on Nascimento here. At this point, my book stops giving me like the plus here. So if I'm doing simple math, right? If I'm doing real easy math, $100 is bringing us back to 4,261. So am I wrong in my public school math? Are we looking at a plus? What is that? Plus?
That's $100 brings back
4,200. Yeah.
So then, you just put the plus sign in front of that then,
right? Yeah. So we're plus 4,261. Yep. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, damn, dude.
We get into the thousands, and my math starts breaking down. So
I always stop and think about that stuff too. Yeah, dude, I love that. I love that you were able to put a couple dogs on there and justify that. Like some weeks I have snuck 1 or 2 dogs on. I actually didn't this week, and I probably should have. Well, I'll get into it and talk about it when I get there, because especially when I get to my last pick here. But my 5th pick is Michael Johnson at minus 150. We already talked about that. I don't really have anything to add. I think he's the better fighter here, and barring anything fluky happening, he should be able to come through here. He might even, I mean, I made a tweet just an hour or 2 ago. Occasionally elite, the Michael Johnson story. So this is a spot where, if Michael Johnson shows up at even 70% of the fighter that he's capable of being, I mean, not only do I think he's going to win here, I mean, he might style here, I mean, this could be a spot where you end up feeling like minus 150 was a gift.
Yeah.
It also might not, because it's Michael Johnson, but I mean, yeah, I'm excited to see how it's going to play out anyway. And there's a reason that I put this person as my 6th leg. And you already covered a lot of those reasons. I put Vina Jandiroba in there at minus 180.
Let's go.
And I honestly, I think part of the reason that I did this, because I put her last because it's the one that I have a lot of concerns about, and you addressed a lot of those concerns already. I bet her early on at I think I got her at minus 150, minus 145, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity to arb out of that has come up, and it might even be sitting there still at that number right now. And that's the one I have a few spots that I can arb out of right now for very, very small profit. And that's the one that I'm really looking at, because I can absolutely see the arguments for Angie here. And I can see the arguments for Angie being a good bet here, like you talked about. And yeah, I'm hoping that Jandiroba is gonna come out with her singlet on and look to wrestle and look to grapple. But like you said, she hasn't always been doing that lately.
No.
She likes those hands. She knows she likes to come out with that. She throws the jab, and then she throws that big overhand, and that's about all she's got. That's about all she'll do. She can crack if she lands. It's powerful. But yeah, there's definitely some concerns that Vina's going to come out and try to work that way. I think if she does look to grapple, she might have some success here. But yeah, I have concerns on that one. And I mean, if I actually bet this, I'm probably going to replace her, because I just don't like that leg very much. But
yeah,
and I haven't been betting these. I wish I would have last week, because like I said, I hit all the way up to the 6th leg, but maybe I'll have to do that this time. But yeah, those 6, just to review again, it's Kudalabich, Chukagian, Grant, Hadley, Johnson, Jandiroba comes out to plus 1017. So I'm nowhere near where you're at. You were up in the 4,000s there. That's dope. Okay. Awesome.
I love it, man. I love it. We did we used to do a thing. Honestly, we did a thing for a while, and it was successful, and then it stopped being, and I didn't want it to lose momentum. Maybe we'll bring it back here. You've inspired me with this parlay thing. We did a thing for a while called the People's Parlay, where we would start with a 5 leg, and I would pick 5 fights and I'd post it to our Instagram, and people, like, we would crowdsource who people thought would win. And then Trey and I would use our own money and play the parlay. And if it won, like say it was a 5-legger and it won, we would pick 5 people that voted on the fights, and we would distribute the winnings back out to 5 people. And if it missed, then we would go a 6-leg, then we go a 7-leg, and then we would just keep going until it eventually hit. We never hit higher than a 6-leg, and we hit like the first 3 times that we did it, and then we started hitting 6 legs, and I was like, okay, maybe. And then then it just started missing time and time again, and I was like, ah, man, I don't want people to like think this is lame, so we stopped doing it. But I might have to bring it back. I start talking about big plus money parlays, man. It makes, ooh, man, it starts making my chest tingle up a little bit, bro.
Yeah, it's just so damn fun. And I totally get, the people that are, professional gamblers and the people who are real serious about not just gambling for fun, but gambling for, very robotic, making sure you're making money kind of way. I get the arguments against parlays. I get that they're not the smartest bet in the world, but it's freaking fun. Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, okay, you can do a manual parlay where you put this money on the one leg, and then if that leg hits, you put that money on another leg. But I don't want to be doing that. I want to be watching the fights. I don't want to be dinking around figuring out. I just want to put the parlay in, and it's like, yeah, I know Vegas was built on parlays. I live here, but like,
right.
But I'm still going to keep making them because it's fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we got props to talk about too, right?
Yeah, dude, let's do it. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off? We'll start. So yeah, we're going to go through 6 props. We'll start with the one with the smallest payout. And I don't know if you saw this on the show before, but if one thing that this wasn't really like an official thing, I just started doing it sometimes because I wanted to. So if you have like 2 props that you like on the same fight, go ahead and give out a bonus when you're talking about that fight or whatever, because sometimes I do that. So
okay. Oh man, So to be honest with you, I didn't know that I had to have these in order. So I just have one
That's okay.
that I like. Okay. So can we talk? Let me talk about one that I like. And curtain jerker right off the rip, first fight of the night. I like Maximov Petrosky to end in round 3 at plus 800.
Oh, I like that.
So the reason why is that both men have shown significant slowdown as the fights go on. Petrosky's obviously the hammer here, right? Like he's going to come out, he's going to swing hard, he's going to try to, implement ground and pound. He's going to be a bully, but we've seen him slow down as the fight goes on. Maximov, on the other hand, we've shown it, like, despite the fact that he hangs out with the Diaz brothers and tries to talk like a Diaz brother and has that whole Diaz camp vibe, has a pretty high fight IQ, right? Like good jits, decent hands, knows when to wrestle, but not a ton of finishing power, but the pressure is there. And in the sense of the world of Diaz, pressure can win fights. You can TKO almost somebody from pressure. So if he goes out and he's able to stop the offense of Petrosky while implementing the pressure, exhaustion, TKO, ground and pound kind of thing, I could see Petrosky getting himself in a bad situation, like maybe with an arm kind of pinned behind him, like a sort of a pseudo crucifix of some sort where he's getting peppered, just not defending himself intelligently. Maximov gets the win. The flip side of that is that we see 2 guys go into the 3rd round, both relatively exhausted from a very high-paced wrestling exchange, and somebody's going to get caught. So I think that there's a great opportunity there. I know a lot of people are on Petrosky. They're on him by KO. But what happens if that doesn't happen in the first 5 minutes? We've got 10 minutes of dicey action that can possibly take place. I like round 3 because if we get past the first 2, both of those guys are going to be exhausted, and exhaustion brings sloppy brings KO, plus 800. I like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I like that too. Yeah, that's good. What book is that on?
I'm showing that. So I love to use Best Fight Odds for these. So
you just grabbed it off Best Fight Odds?
I grabbed it off Best Fight Odds.
Yeah, no
sweat. Because primarily when I bet, I use Bet Online. We set up a thing with them when they sponsored us. But Bet Online is like really late to the game on putting their props up or their markets up on a lot of things, and the
numbers are worse too. The Bet Online always has the worst numbers on the props too, because that's the one I use too. Because I'm in Nevada, so I can't use DraftKings or FanDuel, and so I end up using Bet Online. But yeah, lot of times on this show, even I'm giving out a prop at plus 450 and somebody in the chat is like, I got that at plus 700. I'm like, yeah, I wish I did, but
so that round 3 props plus 750 on DraftKings and is plus 800 on Betway. So
cool. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to start with my smallest one. And like I said at the top of the show, I've been giving out, I've been starting at like plus 500 or something, and I haven't been hitting props. So I'm trying to go a little bit lower. But my lower one here is one that may not be super likely either based on some things that we already talked about here. But I went with at plus 275. I went with Vina Jandiroba by sub. And like we already talked about, we may not be able to trust her to do that. And Angie Hill, she hasn't been subbed in a long time. I think the last time she was subbed was Randa Marcos in March 2019, but she also hasn't really necessarily fought a fantastic submission grappler since then, or somebody who's particularly submission minded, which, like we said, Jandiroba isn't always. Hopefully she will come out and be that here. But and I fully concede that if this fight gets to round 3, Angie's going to absolutely pick her apart on the feet, because I think Jandiroba has never won a round 3, if I'm not mistaken. She's always just kind of falls apart in round 3. And so I'm banking on Jandiroba coming out and not being quite as in love with that overhand right as usual and doing some work, but we'll see. That's what I've got for my lowest one, plus 275.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, if you have a world champion jits player, I see the point in taking them by sub. I mean, I don't see it. I don't think anybody's going to look at you and go, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like you're going to look at that and go, okay, well there is a path there, so why not try it? And that brings me to my transition from one right into another here. I like Nascimento by sub, like we've talked about before. Nascimento wins by decision is at plus 450. I like his sub game. I like his ability to finish fights. I mean, let's talk about this fight a little bit more, because Trey and I talked about it to some extent. I don't see a ton of people with traction on it, but you had mentioned you're on the Hadley side. I'm on the Nascimento side. What am I missing here for Vegas to give such big plus monies on things where guys are finishers? We're talking about over 70% finish rates for both guys, but all these inside the distance things, whether it be sub, KO, over under on rounds, everything's big plus money. What am I missing here? Is this a trap? What's going on?
That's a great question. I don't know if they're just seeing this as a specific matchup kind of thing where they have specific skill sets that are going to cancel each other out. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. So yeah, I totally agree. Like, I mean, Nascimento is, one concern I have about him is that he wants to spend a lot of time on his back, which typically I don't love. But he's a guy who does have a really dangerous guard. And a lot of people that, a lot of fighters that, in theory have a dangerous guard, they're comfortable on their back. And it's like, oh, well, this person is capable of getting subs, but they don't even freaking try.
Right.
They just lay there. Nascimento will actively use his guard to try to find subs. I mean, over and over again. And I really do like that. So in order to trust that Hadley's going to win this fight, I have to trust that he's going to be able to defend all of those subs. And I think they're going to be coming at him the whole time. Right. I definitely can see that. So yeah, it makes for an interesting fight. I think Hadley is the better overall wrestler. I think he's going to be better able to control where the fight takes place. Also because Nascimento is one of those guys who, like we just said, he doesn't really care if you put him on his back. He's not necessarily trying not to go there, even because he's comfortable there. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and transition into my second prop, because my second prop is Alan Nascimento by submission at plus 525.
I'm right there with you. Yeah,
I picked exactly the same one you did.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. So him by submissions, you can get it plus 500. Him by KO, you can get it plus 1200 range. And then him inside the distance is like plus 350 to plus 375, depending on what book. A guy with over a 70% finish rate, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. They must really believe that Hadley has the edge here to put such big plus. I mean, that's big liability, I think, on a guy like Nascimento.
And this is one of those fights where I do like Hadley to win, and I did put Hadley in a parlay, but I'm probably going to play that Alan Nascimento by sub prop because I think it's a really great number. And I don't think that's an unlikely outcome at all.
This is one of those things where I see it and I'm like, I just don't know where the trap is. Hadley by
Yeah.
TKO is at plus 500.
That's
Hadley
decent too. Yeah.
Hadley by submissions plus 500 as well. It's like even on both. He's won 6 out of 8 fights inside the distance.
It must just be the read that since they're both excellent grapplers, they're just going to be able to cancel each other out. It must just be the idea that these guys are both great at getting subs, but they're not going to be great at getting subs against another guy who's great at getting subs. Right. I mean, that must be it, right? I don't know.
It's like a low level Bilal versus Damian Maia or something like that.
Yeah.
It's my turn again. Oh my god.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead and jump. Yeah. I piggybacked right on top of yours.
Yeah,
I had the same one.
You really did. We're right back in it again. Okay. My other one is, excuse me, somebody we haven't talked about yet, which I like her in the spot. Again, I have to go against what I would normally do, but I like Andrea Lee to win by decision. And Andrea Lee by decision is at plus 175. Now I know that's the opposite direction. I've been doing bigger, but I just kind of have it set up in bout order instead.
Right.
But I've got Andrea Lee by decision here at plus 175. My thing with Andrea Lee is that she's aggressive enough to win rounds, balanced in her wrestling and her striking. I believe that she's actually getting better. I think she's getting a little bit more comfortable in her skill set, comfortable where she stands within the UFC. And Arajau has shown herself to be someone who will lose the end of rounds and isn't really there for all, say, 15 minutes of a fight. She'll coast at times and she will get tired because she does do a lot of big body movements where Andrea is able to bite down on the mouthpiece and execute. When there's 45 seconds in the round and the corner's screaming, get the takedown. Andrea Lee listens to the corner and tries to get the takedown. And oftentimes she gets it and it wins her the round that she might otherwise be losing. I like her by decision here. I don't think she's going to get a finish. If she does, it'll be in the later rounds. And I really don't love the idea of betting any women's fight. Not to go against you on John Giroba here. I don't really like betting any women's fight to end inside the distance unless it's like a Jessica Andrade, Shevchenko kind of situation. And Andrea Lee, lover, is not either one of those women. So I'm going to take her by decision at the plus 175 spot.
Yeah, I think that's great because she's slightly favored here. I'm showing her on Bet Online at minus 120, and it's one of those almost like looking at Caitlin Chukagian where it's like if her decision prop is even like 20-30 cents away from her money line, you're getting value on the decision, right? Because she's going to win a decision every time. Like, yeah, this is a spot where like from minus 120 to plus 175. For the decision, which is, I think, by far her most likely way to win. I think there's value there for sure. I mean, especially if you think there's value on the money line there, then there's definitely value on that decision prop. I think for sure. I like that. Well, let's see. Where was I at here? Okay, I've got this is one where I'm going to tack on a bonus, but for my third one here, and I always get a little crazy with the round and the method because I'm trying to build up bigger and bigger here. So this one's at plus 600. I went Davy Grant in round 2 by KO TKO. And the prop for him to win in round 1. All right, I got to pull this up here because I didn't write it down, but it was crazy. Okay, plus Davy Grant in round 1 by KO. Okay, it's plus 315. Never mind. Not as bad as I thought it was. I can't remember which one it was. There was one that I looked at where the round 1 KO prop was like plus 100 or something. And I was like, what? But okay, plus 315. But yeah, that wasn't good enough for me. So I went with Davy Grant in round 2 by KO TKO at plus 600. He got smoked out of there quick last time. He got knocked out. Davy Grant hits hard. This was mostly one of those where like, could he make it happen in round 1? Sure. But I just want to give a bigger number. So I'm going to pretend that Smoke is going to survive to round 2.
Right.
But, so my bonus that I want to tack on here is Louis Smolka by sub is at plus 650. And I don't think that's a terribly unlikely outcome either, especially if they do end up playing around on the ground. If they Grant's been, I don't know how many times he's lost in the UFC off the top of my head, but I think he's been subbed in 3 of his UFC losses. I mean, like I said, I think he's going to be the more physical guy here and that sort of thing. But, that certainly doesn't mean that we couldn't see them end up on the ground scrambling around and Smolka could find the neck or something at plus 650. That's something I wouldn't mind taking a shot on potentially.
I think one of the things to consider with a fight like this, because again, I don't understand a world where Davy Grant's a -3 against anybody, or -330 or whatever the final line ends up being. It's a very strange spot. But one of the things to consider is I think it's like 5 out of the last 6 fights of Smolka's career have not made it out of the second round. Win or lose. He tends to lose or win in rounds 1 and 2. Round 3 doesn't start. You can get at -135 for no round 3 start. So I don't hate that play because I love Davy Grant by knockout, which I think most people are going to play. Like you said at the beginning part of the show, when you put him in your parlay, that a knockout seems likely. Smolka is going to be more active in the first 2 rounds, looking for those subs. The engagements are going to be higher then. And Davy Grant prone to submissions, but also he's going to be swinging that left hand like a baseball bat, hoping for the best. No round 3 start, if you're talking about little bonuses there, -135 on a no round 3 start for that fight, I think there's decent value there as well.
Yeah, I would probably play that if I had access to it, but I don't think I have that one. But I like that.
That's on DraftKings as well.
Yeah.
Damn old DraftKings, man. They're going to get us. I'm in South Carolina. I have no books. I have to play everything overseas. So every time I make a deposit, my bank is like, hey, do you know these people in the Netherlands?
Dude,
and I'm like,
same.
yeah, I do.
With BetOnline, I have to call, I always try. Luckily, I haven't had to make a deposit in a long time because it's been going well. But when I used to make deposits before, usually I would try it. And there were maybe a handful of times where it would just go through. But usually I would try it and it would get refused. And then my bank would call me and I'd be like, yes, just let it go. But yeah, I hear you. All right. So where were we at? We were at number 4.
We've got number 4.
All right. Yeah. So you're up for number 4.
Okay. Number 4, Iwan Cutelaba inside the distance, -165. I know this is chalky, but Ryan Spann, in my opinion, again, like I said earlier, I don't trust him to be a UFC level talent. I think the people that he's beaten inside the octagon aren't the best, if I'm being honest. I think probably Devin Clark is his most notable win. And I don't necessarily, I know Devin looked good his last time out, but I don't necessarily love Devin Clark either in that spot. So when your biggest win, you beat Sam Alvey, you beat Devin Clark. I don't necessarily know if we rewind the clock 5 years, if you belong in this organization. All that to say, Iwan Cutelaba, yes, he went, has shown a more cerebral approach his last couple fights, but the killer's still there. And Spann can be hit. He will be there to be hit. And I almost want to see a performance in my mind the way Cutelaba fought Khalil Roundtree. Right. If you remember that fight, he bullied Khalil. He was shoving him against the cage. He was inside leg sweeping him, grabbing the single, flipping him up and dumping him, making Khalil run all over the place while he was chasing him down and really just kind of being the Hulk. Which in my mind, I hope that's how Iwan approaches this fight. -165. Yeah, it's a little chalky, but I think I like him inside the distance here. I wouldn't ever play a Cutelaba win or by decision. I would always play him inside the distance. That's just the nature of the beast. He seems to be a kill or be killed kind of fighter. So I'm gonna bet on him to kill here. I like him at the -165 inside the distance spot.
I like it. That transitions perfectly into my next one here too. So I'm just going to go right into it. So for my number 4, I typed out in my notes here. I said this one is kind of a package deal. So here's what I was looking at for number 4, because I was specifically looking at Iwan Cutelaba and how I thought he was going to win, and I was going through all of his props. So Iwan Cutelaba by KO is at -130, and like you were saying, it's always kind of a bummer when you're looking at a prop with a minus sign in front of it, right? It doesn't mean you can't find value on it, but it's not what you want to see. So I was looking at that. I'm like, all right, Iwan Cutelaba by KO is -130. And then, so I looked at the other ones and okay, so there's 2 that I wanted to talk about here. The first one is a little goofy for reasons that you just explained. Iwan Cutelaba by decision is +750, which is crazy. I understand why that number is that way. And I kind of was interested in that one when I was looking at it, and then I was looking at I'm going through his record, looking at how many finishes he has, going through Ryan Spann's record, looking at how many times he's been finished. And I'm like, okay, I get why that's a big number because it's not likely. And then so then I went on to the next one. Iwan Cutelaba by sub is plus 1,000.
Oh, boy.
And he's not a guy who grabs a lot of subs because he wants to Hulk out on you. He's not trying to grab your neck. He wants to smash the side of your head in, that's just what he wants to do, I think. But at the same time, am I going to take a shot on that? I don't know. Do I think Iwan Cutelaba absolutely could sub Ryan Spann? Yes, I do. I don't know if he's going to make that choice because it just isn't the way his brain works, I don't think. Right. But I thought it was at least worth pointing out.
I don't know, man. He's got to win by omoplata, so maybe.
He's got two. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I was looking at that. And actually, I think I put that in my notes here that I did. I put he does have 2 omoplata finishes in his pre-UFC career, plus 1,000 for the possibility of the Hulk coming out here and locking up Superman in a goddamn omoplata. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I wish there's some books that are out there that offer like submission specific lines.
Yep.
I really, man, I would really like to see what an Iwan by omoplata line would be at. It would have to be. We probably opportunistically pay off the mortgage, maybe.
I wish I could bet Parker Porter by Kimura in every fight that he has for the rest of his life because I would, because it's coming, man.
Dude, or Romanov by Keylock. Like, give me Romanov by Keylock every.
Or Keylock, that's what I meant. Yeah, I said Kimura. I meant Keylock. Yeah, Parker Porter by Keylock. Yep.
Give me. Just side note here. I believe that Aleksandar Romanov is. Somebody said it before, and I've said I agree wholeheartedly. Will be the first person to possibly detach a limb completely in the octagon. That guy is so big and so strong and has no quit button in him whatsoever. Once he gets a hold of a limb, it is terrifying. True. Terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, golly, is he scary, man? He's like, I don't know. He's like a 7-foot tall freaking Husamar Paul Harris, man. He just literally wants to rip something off every time. Yikes!
You gotta love that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to number 5.
All right, number 5. All right. I'm not going to go to Caitlin Chukagian by decision, even though that is the cash cow of all cash cows. I will not do it. I'm going to avoid that one.
Yeah, I've got a bet on her money line, but I'm probably going to bet her by decision as well because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. I'm basically, this is a baked in one. I'm going under 1.5 on the Camacho Torres fight. And that the reason why that's baked in is because of the punchless curse. I believe that Frank's going to lose the fight just based on the fact that what we've seen in the past. From what I understand about Frank is not only is he a very nice guy, he's one of those guys that's always in the gym dedicated to making the people around him better. But when he gets into a fight, it seems like the fight IQ just kind of turns off. He can't avoid the firefight. He can't avoid the slugfest. And you say like, oh, well, he's going to go out there and he's going to use the veteran savvy. I just don't think he's going to do. I just don't think when he goes out there that he's going to slow roll into this. He's like the opposite of Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin had to get hit in the nose to realize that he was in a fight and then start fighting, where Frank goes into it thinking he's got to go 100 miles an hour, nothing's going to happen. It's just, he doesn't have to work his way into it. He just goes out there and starts banging. And Torres, I think, is going to be there with a little bit slicker on the hands, and he's going to tag him up a little bit. 1.5, I think is, obviously that's where the line is sitting, but I think it's there for a reason. Under 1.5, you can get it at plus money. It's plus 115, and it's baked in, and it's house money for me because I think Frank's got our show curse on him. Plus the Dana White Contender Series fade is in there too. So give me 2 guys in a firefight for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Somebody's going night at plus money. So that's where I'm at.
I like it. I'm not gonna comment too much on that one because I'm gonna be touching on that in my number 6 here. But yeah, I got a little something on that fight as well,
dude. I love how
it's very different from what you've got. So it's gonna be a fun conversation. All right, so my number 5. Let's see, great. Oh, I just want to say, yeah, we got Alexis here saying greetings from Chile. How's it going, Alexis? That's awesome. Thanks for being here. I when I was in high school, we had an exchange student from Santiago who was I was good friends with, and I'm still friends with him on Facebook. We still talk sometimes and stuff, so that's cool. Grateful Dude says Camacho fight doesn't go the distance is an easy parlay piece. Yeah, if you have a book that lets you parlay props.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I love that. All right, so for number 5, we've already talked about this somewhat. I went with Andre Petroski by KO TKO at plus 1,000.
Yeah.
And every time I think about how this fight could play out in my head, this is what I keep coming back to. Like I agree with kind of the breakdown for this fight is kind of everybody's seeing it more or less the same way as far as the broad strokes, like Petroski is probably the stronger, more physical guy. He's probably going to come out hard in round 1. If Petroski's going to win, it's probably more likely to happen earlier because both guys do slow down, but Petroski is more likely to slow down more because he's just kind of the hulking out sort of guy sometimes. But here's what I keep thinking is that I keep picturing Maximov going for a takedown. Maybe they're against the cage. Petroski's back is against the cage. Maximov is going for a takedown. He's in on the hips. He's looking to get his angle. He's looking for the takedown. And maybe Petroski happens to find the right angle for some Travis Brown elbows or the right angle for some hammer fists or something. I just keep seeing like Maximov's working for a takedown. Petroski's able to nail him with a couple of shots, elbows or hammer fists, whatever, enough that hurt him and drop him, and then finishes him with hammer fists on the ground, something like that. So, and Petroski's the kind of guy who's, he's got the kind of power that he could potentially even catch him in open space and put him out too. But I'm seeing it more like just kind of a botched takedown attempt, and he ends up at the right angle to just get bop, bop, bop. So, Andre Petroski by TKO plus 1,000 is the one I went with for number 5.
Oh man. Yeah. What makes me nervous, and I agree with you. In a lot of that is when you have those like 2 wrestling based guys like that, even though Maximov, I believe, has the better jits, 2 wrestling based approach guys, most of them are just swinging overhand rights, and what makes me nervous about this fight, here's what makes me nervous is historically speaking, when you have 2 guys that are very good on the ground, they never end up fighting each other on the ground. They always want to throw hands. It
turns into that ugly kickboxing fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I hate. If we get a round 3 stop, I'm going to be super excited about it. But 9 times out of 10, I hate that. I hate that it ends that way. I want to see elite level wrestling scrambles the whole 9. We just very rarely get that. I can see those elbows. That is a,
now that's in your head, you can't get it out, can you?
Get it out,
Once I start, that keeps popping into my head when I think about this fight. I'm like, man, I feel like he's going to get that.
It's a worm for sure. It's there. Yeah. All right. Oh man, golly, I don't know now. No, you're good. I like it. Okay. So, can I do a bonus? Can I like tag it on here?
Anything you want, man. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Rakić in round 4 and Rakić in round 5. I like both of those, and you're getting it plus 2,500, respectively. So, yeah, Rakić in round 4, you're at plus 200. Round 5, you're at plus 2,500. I think Jan's a slow starter. I think Rakić, with his output, isn't really a big threat to finish the fight in round 1. It's one of those ones where we've seen at least the last few light heavyweight main events, especially in the Apex, things progress slowly. It takes a while to get into the fight. Rakić doesn't have great output to begin with. So round 1 is kind of going to be like a feeler, throw it out. Round 2, it might get a little bit dicier. We might get a couple more exchanges. It's where we're going to see whether or not Blachowicz's game plan is actually going to work, and what it is, right? I spoke with a guy earlier today. His take, which I thought was a hot take, is that he believes that Blachowicz is one of, if not the best kicker in the light heavyweight division, which I thought was pretty wild. Because I don't want to say I vehemently disagree, but I don't agree with that. But that was his take of it. So are we going to have a kickboxing battle? Because then I'm on Rakić. All that to say this: the fight's going to take a while to get going, short of somebody getting caught early. Rounds 4, round 5, light heavyweights, big boys, tired. Not to mention the fact that I don't believe wrestling is going to play much of a factor. So things start to slow down, damage starts to accumulate. Plus 2,000, plus 2,500. That's 10 minutes of fight time where we're getting 20 to 1 on our money, 25 to, whatever on our money. So 10 minutes of that fight, if we get there where we're seeing 20 plus return, come on, man. I'm all about that life.
Dude, those are great lines. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, could this fight end early? Sure. But I agree with you that they're both going to feel it out and take their time getting into it. I think you're exactly right about that. Yeah. I like the possibility of this ending late. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. And that was number 6?
That was 6. That was it.
It was. Okay, cool. All right. So we're at the last one. All right. So I usually end up going with a draw for my last one at plus 6,600. I didn't do that today. I didn't do a draw. I didn't go all the way up. So the highest I got today. So what I always end up doing when I prep this show is I put a bunch of props. I just type a bunch of props that I like, and then I pick the 6 that I like, and then I end up moving a couple others down to the bottom. So they're just hanging out down there, but they're not in the official picks. Yep. Last week, one of the ones that I had was CJ Vergara by decision at plus 500, and that one ended up hitting. So none of my actual props hit, but one of the ones I had that I moved to the bottom did.
Yeah.
So the ones I've got at the bottom that I didn't go with are Jan Blachowicz by sub at plus 750, which is weird, and Alan Patrick in round 1 by TKO at plus 1800. So didn't like those, got those out of there. But the one that I did pick for number 6 here, it's at plus 1600. Frank Camacho in round 3 by KO TKO. And so here's what I was thinking here. Like, Manuel Torres, is that his name? Manuel? Yeah, Manuel Torres. He's a guy we don't know a whole lot about. I think he does have one fight that went to decision, but I wasn't able to find tape on that. And I think like pretty much all of his other fights, he's won in the first round. So he's a guy that's accustomed to coming out there and getting that quick finish. We've seen Camacho get finished quickly in his last 2 fights. But, the way I look at those, I mean, obviously the one was against Justin James. I don't like calling anything a lucky punch, because if you're trying to punch somebody and you punch them, you've done what you were trying to do. So it wasn't lucky. But, I don't think that fight plays out that way a large percentage of the time, personally. And then I think his fight before that was the round 1 sub against Beneil Dariush, which, I mean, there's no shame in that either.
Sure.
And then the fight before that was Nick Hein, where I thought he had one of the best performances he's ever had. I thought that he was a very disciplined and measured version of Frank Camacho in that fight. He was showing that he could actually kind of stick to a smart game plan and keep from brawling too much and that kind of thing. But I think part of that was also because he wasn't struggling a lot in that fight.
Sure.
I think he was able to kind of do what he wanted to do. And I think that doesn't bring that other part out of him, maybe. But so I was choosing to look at this like, okay, the last 2 quick finishes that he's had, we can kind of forgive those to some degree. And then the one before that, he was looking really good. Of course, there was also the car accident, and he's been off for a long time. And those are things that, how much do you weigh that into your capping? Who knows, But if Manuel Torres does come out here doing Manuel Torres things and he's not able to find that round 1 finish, what happens to him physically and mentally down the road? If he's not able to get that finish, then he finds himself in round 2 with a solid, experienced UFC veteran. He's still a pretty young guy. Is Camacho going to be able to start taking over there? So I was looking at this like basically banking on, I don't want to do the like, because we've never seen this guy outside of round 1, that means he's no good outside of round 1.
Sure.
Not necessarily true, but at the same time, could be. So I liked the possibility of like, if he's not able to, and that's why I think this is a great live betting spot too, because Torres is going to come out here and empty the gas tank potentially in round 1, looking for that finish. And then he finds himself as the Dana White Contender Series newbie guy against the experienced veteran going later into the fight. So so that's what I'm thinking there.
I think one of the concerns for me for Frank in this fight is his wins in the UFC over was it Damian Brown and Nick Hein. Both those guys are pretty slow starters. They're not afraid of a fight. Like Nick Hein was never afraid of a fight. Damian Brown was in some wars, but you had to drag him into the war. Like Damian Brown, you had to bring him in. You had to say, this is what kind of fight we're going to have. Nick Hein was content, much like a Brad Katana or trying to think of somebody else, a Norman Park, was very that same realm, those 155 guys that were very, there was like a moment in time where we had a bunch of 45, 55 guys that were like, it's pretty cool with point fighting, really. And if you're not taking the fight to Frank, He's able to bring the fight to you and make you uncomfortable, put you on the back foot and win. And those are his only 2 wins. Everybody else that like brought the fight to him, like, hey, bro, you want to fight? Cool. Let's get this. The fundamentals dissolve and he starts to go down. That's my only concern. I think there's validation in what you're saying in the sense that Torres is inexperienced enough that he may just go out there and try to bring the fight to Frank and be ineffective in doing so because Frank's got the veteran savvy, been there, done that, seen it, and then can stretch the fight later on and get that TKO as the fight progresses. But my only concern is that if Frank loses, it's to people that take the fight directly to him, which is what Torres does. But at a certain point, veteranship has to account for something, right? So round 3 TKO at what'd you say, plus 1600? Let's go. Get it, man.
Yeah, dude, that was a perfect breakdown. I think everything you said makes perfect sense. That like Torres is going to bring it to him, but then you also got to take into account at what level is he going to bring it to him? How good is Torres really? That makes a ton of sense. I like that, and I do think that I do think Torres finding a round 1 KO here is a reasonably likely outcome. I definitely think that could happen, but I also think that the face of the fight potentially changes quite a bit if that doesn't happen. And that's what 100%. Makes it a really interesting matchup, I think. Yeah. Awesome. Any others that you want to share? Anything else you want to throw out there?
I don't really, I don't have a ton of like props that I really like was sitting back going, I'm super in love with this event. I guess more so than anything else, my question to you is that when you see a fight like this, right? Like let me figure out a way to package this correctly. The UFC's been consistently putting on events through COVID and everything else, consistently putting events. So we've always got fights to watch, which for people like you and I and other people, it's great that we've always got something to watch. Obviously, at a certain point, cards start to get a little thin, and we are in a bit of a doldrum right now where cards they're scraped pretty thin. There's not a whole lot of butter on this toast. When you see a card like this, are you more inclined to bet it or are you less inclined? Like, do you want to stay away from fights from cards like this? Or are these the ones you dig deep and you're like, oh, there's some value here, I got to get after it?
My answer to that question, because I know we have really different approaches to how we do the betting. And so I don't really have a straight answer to that, because to me, it really does have everything to do with the tape study. Mm-hmm. I don't really, I don't even really make reads. Like, I know some cappers will put out, like on Twitter, they'll be like, okay, here's like my early picks. Like they'll put out an image, like with the people circled, and like, they're like, I'm still going to do tape study, but these are my early picks. Like, I don't even think about it until I get into the tape. And part of it has to do, this is something I talk about on my shows all the time. And you and I are on very opposite ends of the continuum here too. I have a terrible short-term memory for details. Like, so I literally, if I didn't do tape, I couldn't bet fights because I really won't remember. I actually have an idea for a recap show that I want to do called Erik Can't Remember Shit. Yeah, and the idea is that on Sunday, somebody would quiz me about the fights from the night before, because I half the time, like when a card is over, I won't even remember who won a lot of the fights and shit. So like, you can ask me like, who won this fight and how, and like, I got to stop and think about it. Like, I might get there, but I might be wrong on some of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, that's
we're
literally
way
how my memory works. So yeah, like I can't, but I can remember tons of shit from the early UFCs because I watched them over and over and over again. But I just have a real bad memory. So I really don't, it ends up being all about the tape. So I don't even really look at a card and think like, oh, are there spots I want to bet here? I go into it completely open-minded on every fight without even really thinking about that, if that makes sense.
So when you see an announcement for a matchup, do you ever like sit in your head and go, oh, like they just announced Vicente Luque versus Jeff Neal today.
Neal,
yeah. So when I see that, I go Luque. Either I initially my initial lean right off the rip is Luque, right? I think he beats Luque, or I think he beats Jeff Neal. When you see a matchup like that, do you like initially like throw something out like right off the rip?
Sometimes, I guess it depends on the match. Like in that one, Luque jumps out in my mind as well, but I couldn't really I couldn't really articulate for you exactly why, you know. I know that you could go into like, well, Luque won this fight this way and this fight this way, and like, and I can't do that until I either look through the record or watch the tape. I don't have that stuff in my head. And so that's why one thing that's really weird about the content creation, we're going way off the rails here, but whatever.
Sorry.
I don't care.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
Okay.
But one thing that's really weird about the whole content creation thing for me, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but it's literally 3 times as much work for me as it is for anyone else, because here's what I do. I watch tape, which takes me anywhere from an hour to 2 hours per fight, maybe, or something like that. So it just depends, I guess. And I type notes on every single fight. Then I go through, I have to retype my notes, kind of like when you're a kid and they're telling you to study, like you should type things out because you remember it better. So then I retype my notes in an order that kind of makes sense to me.
Okay.
And then I take those retyped notes and I make bulleted talking points. And then I also type out some stats. So I have all that stuff in front of me when I'm doing a show, because otherwise, after I watch the tape, even after watching the tape, I won't remember my reads and my talking points and stuff. I have to have, so I've got anywhere from 12 to 18 pages of notes for every event in front of me while I'm doing my videos, because I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. So yeah, it's like I've been blessed with a neurodivergent brain that can't remember shit, and so I have to put a lot of work into doing this shit that a lot of other people don't.
Yeah, man. Golly. I had to do, like, I don't do a ton of notes. I watch very little tape unless I can't remember a specific thing. Because at least when it comes to stuff like this, I have a very good memory. And the more tape I watch, the more I doubt myself. Because it in the way I see it in my mind, oftentimes almost feels like a more accurate read than what happened in the fight sometimes. If that makes any sense at all. Like watching Blachowicz versus Izzy the second time, like when I watched Blachowicz versus Izzy the first time, I was like, this is 50-45, man. This is like, I don't care what commentary is saying, Jan is winning this fight. This ain't even close. I watched it again just like because it was on like on demand on ESPN, and I'm watching it and I'm like, man, Izzy's doing okay here. Like thinking about him, like, and this is messing with my brain. Like this, I don't love revisiting stuff all the time with trying to get new perspective on it, because then it makes me think about it differently. I almost feel like, no, you had it right the first time. Jan won the fight. It was correct. It was decisive. Just let it go. Like I can't do it like that. I'll start overthinking and analyzing. I did notes. Every time I've ever done commentary or announcing, I've had to do notes on things, and I'm not the best note taker, and it's very much like what you described. I will do it once and then I'll make like 4 or 5 revisions on it. When I did, I'm sure you've seen them, Bruce Buffer's cards that he does, like for when he's announcing a fighter, and it's like 500 words of scribbles and highlighters and shit circle and arrows and stuff. I was like, how does anybody keep up with that? I made my cards as I'm going through the event. I'm there and I'm scratching shit out. I'm circling stuff. I'm doing like, so by the end, I've got a stack of index cards, and they just looked like a toddler had them, man. It's the same thing.
That's exactly what it would have been like for me. I do that with everything. And I'm generally speaking, I'm a very anxious person about everything. Like I have to be overly prepared for everything that I do. So that's why I was talking about, like, even leading up to this show, I'm like changing my mind and moving stuff around and typing up notes. I do that with everything. I have to be like crazy overly prepared, and then it ends up turning into such a mess, because then I have to like, so that's why I've ended up typing out talking points, because otherwise I've got a page of notes on this fight and I'm staring at it on a screen like, well, what am I supposed to sit here and read this while everybody sits and waits for me to figure out which parts I'm actually going to talk about? So then I had to start typing out talking points. Anyway, whatever, we don't need to get into that, but that's for the love of the game. I'm putting the time in.
Hey, and people appreciate it, man. Listen, I'm a big proponent for consistent quality content. As long as you've been making your stuff, I'm sure somebody's reached out to you by now. You just did your deal with who did you just partner up with?
Never Hedge Media.
They're which, congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
It's this idea of somebody will reach out to you and say, man, I used to have a podcast, or I've been thinking about starting a podcast, or they always want to talk to you about what it takes to do it. and how do you get where you're at? And the one thing I say to everybody, this first thing I say to everybody, you have to be able to commit yourself to creating consistent quality content. That's it. It doesn't have to be everybody's version of quality, but it needs to be of a quality that you're satisfied with, and you have to be able to produce it consistently. Trey and I try to make a show that is very much just two dudes talking about fights, but there is a lot of effort that goes into two dudes just talking about fights.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like we say, oh, we're just going to sit down and crack a beer and talk about fights. Him and I are talking about the show all week long. So when we get there, it looks like two dudes talking about fights, but there's a lot of damn work that goes into that. And we're able to do it consistently. And if you watched episodes of Punchlist a year ago and you watch them now, some of the stuff we talk about might be different. Some of our catchphrases might be different, but the general brick and mortar of the show is exactly the same. It's two bros talking about fights and betting, but a lot of work goes into that. So consistent quality content. And I say all that to say this, not talk about me, but talk about you. You do that and people notice that. So when we're talking about before we even start, you're like, man, I've been getting followers and people are doing this, that, and the other. The reason why I do that is because people realize when somebody's working hard, and it's like I was telling Trey the one time, it's like the little sucker fish on the shark. They know that you're eating good, so they want to come along and they go, I want to go where you're going. Show me what you're doing. I want to see what you got going or where you're going to take us next. Keep doing what you're doing. You're crushing it, and people notice that. So that's why it's happening. So just kudos to you, but also don't stop. Push harder. Go, 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 go.
Well, damn, brother, I appreciate that. I'm absolutely awful at taking compliments. I'm sitting here like, oh, like fucking. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm terrible at taking compliments.
Nah, man,
I'm the biggest critic of myself in the world, but I super appreciate that. One thing I wanted to say, piggybacking on top of what you were just talking about, that all the work that goes into making it look easy, and that's true of so many things. Things that look easy rarely are. It's because the work has been put into making them look easy. I used to be a writing teacher. I used to, one thing that I said to my students, I can't remember who this was a quote from an author. I can't remember who it was, but the quote was, "Easy reading is damn hard writing." And that was something like, like writing something that's easy to read. It's like, oh, this just feels effortless. Yeah, it feels effortless because of all the goddamn effort that went into it. It's the same kind of thing that you're talking about. I think there's a lot to that in a lot of things, really.
I know who said that. Oh my gosh. It's funny that you're like, you do a trivia thing, because I tried out for Jeopardy once. I don't know if you know that or not, but I had aspirations of being contestant on Jeopardy because I have a hard time like remembering my kids' birthdays, but I can remember how many ridges are on a dime, like dumb shit like that. So but yeah, given enough time and not having 5 beers today, I probably could remember who that is. But anyway, doesn't matter.
I just looked it up, and it's one of those things that's that gets attributed to a bunch of different people. I'm seeing it attributed to Nathaniel Hawthorne quite a few times, though, so it might be him. But yeah, a lot of those quotes, you look them up and see them attributed to different people in different places. But
what's the one that always gets attributed to Hemingway? What is it? Write drunk, edit sober, or something like that. That's the
I think I've heard that before too. Yeah.
But anyway,
awesome.
Yeah, man, that's all I got.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready to call it. I mean, I could sit here and talk all night, but I think my wife's we're going out to an arcade to play some games for my birthday yet here tonight. So I probably better call it. But we've brought the kids there twice, and both times I've been like, I want to just come back here sometime and play without the kids. And she said, well, that's what we'll do for your birthday then. So I'm excited for that.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I've been a fan for a long time. I love listening to your show. I'm honestly honored that you would come on my show and talk fights. So I really appreciate this. Had a really good time doing it. Hope that you'll come back again sometime when I go cycling back through the guests.
Dude, whenever you want me, I'm at your disposal. I usually, whenever I do a guest spot, I try to leave with a word of encouragement. I've already tried to encourage you as much as I can. Hopefully you're taking something away from it. Hopefully your fans, if you don't know who I am, if you've never listened to our show, if you're into something that's a little bit more easy breezy, that's kind of our vein. check out Punchlist MMA. We try to be as interactive with our fans as possible. It's so weird saying fans, by the way. I just want to talk about that.
I was trying to say like listeners or viewers or something. I feel weird saying that too.
I catch myself every time. We try to be as interactive with the people that listen to our show as possible. So if you want to just BS about fights or anything else, please come check us out. We're available everywhere at Punchlist MMA.
Awesome.
Erik, I've already said this before. I love your content. I appreciate your friendship in the space. I appreciate the things that you're doing. Keep it up. Happy birthday. All that stuff, man. I look forward to listening back through this and having some good laughs. So thanks, man. Seriously, appreciate it.
Hell yeah, brother. I appreciate it very much. Thanks so much for being here. Yeah, everybody, like Dale said, make sure to check out Punchlist MMA if you haven't. You can find him on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter. I listen to him on the actual podcast app thing. I listen to the audio version. I pop in for the live show sometimes too when I can, but otherwise I always listen in the car on the audio version. But yeah, they do a great job. I've been listening to them for a long time. If they're not in your podcast rotation yet, go ahead and plug them in there. But to those of you who hung out in the chat, thank you so much for being here. To those of you who are listening later, thank you so much. I am Erik with Erik Bets Fights. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Bets Fights, right here on YouTube. Make sure to drop a like and a subscription if you haven't yet. You can also find me on Instagram at Erik_Bets_Fights. And like Dale mentioned, I've recently joined a partnership with Never Hedge Media. They do content related to not only sports betting, but also crypto and NFTs and stocks and different things. I won't be involved in any of that. I'm just going to be an MMA betting guy for them, but they've got people doing a bunch of stuff like that too. So make sure to check out Never Hedge Media. They're doing some cool things. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I hope you had a great night. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. Take care, everybody.